Okay, Mark, you can do sort of the intro and I'll introduce the people.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the Winnipeg UFO Experiencers and Researchers Group in conjunction with Grant Cameron and his entire group that organize regular meetings. Winnipeg group now is 776 people, growing, it seems like every week. We have a very unique and very exciting meeting tonight on light languages and people who write. I guess you call it automatic writing or controlled writing, Grant.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very excited to have this group. I know there's groups coming in from basically all over the world. We've got Australia, Europe, United States, Canada, and it looks like all across Canada. Groups, Phoenix MUFON, I know was invited tonight, and the group from Chicago, which is a smaller group, but still one that's growing, and also Toronto. So we're excited to get this meeting started. Grant, do you want to start it off by introducing some of our guests?
Okay, and just to let Desta know, Desta Barnaby is my producer for this, and can I just give you that my chat is disabled, so if you can put that on your list of things to fix. We have some problems. We've moved to a different account, and because of security on Zoom, they've changed all the buttons and stuff, and we're trying to figure this out, but we're going to go with it. And what we'll do is we have some videos that if you go, once this is all going to be recorded, it's going to go on YouTube. I will put up a separate presentation, which will include the videos that we can't show tonight because we don't have a share screen unless Desta finds it. But we have some very dramatic footage of people doing light language, orbs, this sort of stuff while they're doing the light language. So we will put those videos, we'll put them as well with the presentation when it goes on YouTube. I have 7 panel members tonight, and this has got to do with light language. People call it angelic language, alien language, whatever you want to call it. We first learned about this a couple of years back when Mary Rodwell, who's my first person I want to introduce today. Mary Rodwell actually spoke to the Winnipeg group. This is going back 3 or 4 years ago. And can we open Mary's mic? And Mary Rodwell is from Australia. She's one of the founding board members of the Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Experiences. She has worked a lot with children who do light language, and I'll put her a little bit later in case so we can try to get that share screen. How are you doing tonight, Mary?
I'm doing well, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this because I think it's so significant. My work with families and children is totals about 3,500 now, and this has come up so many times, this expressions of ET contact, as I call it. So for me, I'm delighted that finally we're getting some recognition of the actual reality here of extraterrestrial contact. This is the evidence, isn't it? This is the evidence that we are having contact with these non-human intelligences. So I'm really excited because, as Grant knows, I have worked with children. I've got a couple of recordings of a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old that speak the light language. One of them, another one actually told me that she could actually heal water with one of her languages. So I'll talk more about that later. But basically, my credentials are a former nurse midwife. I've been a researcher and a counselor and a hypnotherapist for the last 30 plus years. And I've been in this, working in this phenomena for at least 25 now, and written 2 books, Awakening and The New Human.
Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. Yeah, and hopefully we get that share screen. Otherwise, if you play your video, we may be able, or the audio of that 5-year-old, that's pretty dramatic stuff. So we'll see what happens. We'll leave you to a little bit later. My next guest is ildegard Germerner from Toronto, who runs the Experiencer Group in Toronto. And she is here tonight. ildegard, are you there?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Grant.
Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your group.
Well, it's all to your credit, Grant, I must say. In my early 30s, I had a walk-in experience and a new soul fractal came in. So I'm only 28 right now from that perspective, and was never going to speak about this again because, as everybody might know, if you go and tell people you had a soul fractal exchange and you're from 70 Andromeda, Botus being my home planet, it doesn't go down too well. However, 4 years ago, I was able to attend a conference, and Grant's encouraging opening got me out of the closet, if you so will, and I started to share my story. And most notably, a couple of months before that, I found that I could speak this light language. Have been in touch with a part of me I call Louis Mar, which is that 7-dimensional Andromedan in charge of the walk-in program. And I trust that guidance because not only did it heal my body that was given up on by Western medicine in the early 30s, but also it helped me recover this broken vessel and raise 4 children, which was supposed to be against all odds. So I'm an intuitive counselor. I help people understand their intuitive guidance and hope to bring out my book, Your Universe, Your Way, in the next little while. Thank you, Grant.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. From Las Vegas, Nevada, Misha Johnson. Is she here? Can you open Misha's mic? And she may not be here yet. Misha Johnson speaks a number of light languages. She actually runs a number of experiencer groups and has a radio talk show. And she has one on light language people, an experiencer support group. So if she comes in, maybe you can let me know in the chat box if Misha Johnson comes in. Lightstar is here. Can you turn on Lightstar's microphone?
Hey there.
Hi, how you doing? From
Good.
Sedona, Arizona, where everybody wants to go, right?
Or everyone has already been. A lot of you guys have already been here. So yeah, thank you very much for having me on here. It's just an honor. This is my first foray into this, so I wasn't sure what we were expecting here, but I know so many people would be on here, so I'm excited. But yes, I'm also a light language person. I've been speaking light language. Well, actually, I wish I had somebody like Mary when I was 9 years old, because that's when mine started. And so I've been speaking it ever since then, but I didn't know what it was until later in life. And so I speak about 20 or so languages at the moment and counting that I've been integrating for the last 10 or so years primarily. And I'm also a visionary and attunement artist is what I call myself. So I actually bring a lot of codes and symbols and galactic information, as well as the angelics and the elementals, into my artwork that also helps to activate people, as well as doing my own session work. And I actually develop things around the light language chakra clearings and different things that I'm using to help heal and activate people. So that's primarily what I'm doing here, and so many different things. I've been actually doing a lot of music now, so I've integrated doing light language and music and combined them together. So that's a synergy that is just recently developed, and so that's what I'm doing.
Beautiful. And that's your art behind you.
Some of it, yes. Not this side or the one with the branches, but the other stuff, yes.
Beautiful. You're multi-talented. What's your website?
Lightstarcreations.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a pleasure to have, especially someone who can speak 20 languages. And you know what languages they are, like from where they're from, or? I
have spent the last at least, probably 7 years deciphering where they come from. Now, some of them are still a little uncertain, but for the most part, yes, I have really settled down and decided with my team, my guides, and all of the beings that helped to help me to figure out where they were coming from. That was important to me. I don't feel it's important for everybody to do that, but it was important enough for me to actually get some guidance on where they're coming from and to get a little more information on that.
Exciting stuff. Okay. We've got one guy, and he just came on the panel yesterday, but I think he's going to hold his own. John Bertoli. Can you open John's mic?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself. And you're a big time. I didn't realize who you were, and then I started looking at some of your videos last night. You've done a lot of light language stuff. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a lifelong experiencer. I can't ever remember a time that I wasn't seeing and feeling things that other people weren't. And as I started to progress through my life in my teens, I actually thought I was going crazy because I was hearing voices, seeing beings, a lot of ships, a lot of ET contact. I didn't know what it was. And I kind of tried to get away from it. And as I progressed in my life, I got into my 30s, I really started to embrace it a little bit more. And then indeed into my 40s, it just accelerated. And I was exercising one day. I've been into fitness for most of my life. And I'm in my mid 50s now. And what I found is to kind of throw back on martial arts is there's a focus of bringing spiritual energy into the physical body. And what I was able to do is I was able to take the spiritual energy and bring it into my physical body. And I actually use light language to help me, in a physical sense as well, in the form of training. I speak multiple dialects as well. I have 3 main dialects that I speak. But when I'm meditating and Lightstar, I'm sure she can totally relate to this, is that there are dialects that just come through. And my understanding of it is we have our physical lineages here on Earth, but we also have our universal lineages where has our soul been? What experiences have we picked up in these different star systems? And so my primary dialect is ancient Pleiadian, but what I've come to know through study and things like that is there are over 6,000 dialects in the Pleiadian languages alone, because life is so vast. And so whether it be Arcturian, Orion, or Andromedan, or whatever the derivative of these languages, there are a lot of hybrid dialects involved as well. And so through experiencing the expression of it and understanding what it is, I've really been able to open up even more. And I've had some pretty incredible experiences since I really embraced the languages. But
beautiful.
I wanted to add one other thing is I did come to understand that I'm actually what's called an activator, and everybody holds these languages within them somewhere. Everybody is capable of speaking these dialects that are in line with their own lineages. So there's nobody other than somebody who doesn't really want to in their heart that can't speak them. And that's what's really important. This is a part of us as humanity evolves and consciousness expands. This is a part of all of us. It's the universal link, or a universal link to all our universal lineages and other types of races that we come from. So I think that that's really, really important to talk about.
Beautiful. Okay. We have another person who's just joining the panel here. I will put them last here. Hang on. Next, I've got Tiffany Tin. Can you open Tiffany's mic if she's here? She's only going to be here for a couple minutes. I just want to see if she's here yet. And can you let me know in the chat box when Tiffany comes in so we can do her? She's from Toronto as well. Okay, Tiffany's not here. So when she comes in, let me know. Next one, maybe Mark, you can introduce. You're the one that introduced me to Linda Green. Can you open Linda Green's mic? And Mark, maybe you can talk a little bit about your contact with Linda.
Yes, Linda's become a friend about 3 years ago, 3 years ago. We have a mutual friend that we were at the Phoenix MUFON, or sorry, the Phoenix UFO Congress, and my friend had mentioned that she speaks this woman coming up into a morning session at the UFO Congress. She came over and sat down at the table with us, and we got to know each other. And we asked her to provide an example of how she speaks. And as she was speaking, she had tears flowing down her face, and some very unique things were going on as we were watching her saying these languages that I'd never heard before. And I've since found out, actually through Mary Rodwell and some crystal children that had deciphered some of the information, that some of the words that she was speaking had no meaning, but only had feeling. And that sort of came across very strongly as we got to know each other more. And when she didn't know exactly what she was saying, but when you have tears flowing down your face, it really made a connection with me, and I found it to be very interesting. So Linda and I have stayed in touch, and as part of a fun group that we go and watch, she has her own group. She manages very well, I will say, Linda. But welcome, Linda, from Phoenix, Arizona.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for that introduction. It's been great getting to know you. Yes, I started speaking light language back in 2012. It was rather spontaneous, and once it got going, it was like I couldn't stop it, and it would hurt my jaw. It was coming out so much. I mean, I just wanted to speak, and it would go on and on for 15 minutes straight. And because the words were formed different, I mean, it really was like it bothered my jaw. And after a while, not knowing about light language, I was speaking this so often that I actually forced myself to stop. That's where Light Star, I agree with you, it'd be nice to have someone like Mary Broadwell to tell you this is what you're doing. But I just thought, this is really stupid, because I didn't know what I was talking about. And later, it was more like channels and psychics talked to me about this language that I would have. I am a lifelong abductee, which started at childhood, part of the hybrid race, the Rh negative blood, the cosmic blood. I've also been told I'm like a royal, which means my vibrational frequency is like 1 in every 250,000 to 1 in every 300,000 humans. And what it is just that you're slightly more elevated DNA, which makes you more of a, what do I say? I won't call it more of a candidate to be abducted, because they want your blood, so to speak, their DNA in their hybrid program. So there's been, who knows what's going on. In 2008, I woke up on a ship with 3 aliens around me. When I first started, I had to overcome a lot of things because I was a businesswoman. I wasn't into UFOs. I wasn't into this stuff. So I had to overcome my own bias to sit here in front of you, to let you see me. It was like I'm one of those closet people. Like, I didn't want anyone to know I was involved. I wouldn't say I was involved with, interested in aliens. I wouldn't say anything. So here I am sitting here talking to you in a group where who knows who can see me. So I've come a long way just learning to accept who I am, love myself enough to be able to handle any kind of ridicule someone might come up with, including my family, which is the biggest. So also, when I've used this language with people, the first time I did it in a group, it was about 3 years ago, and I was in Wisconsin, and I went around the room and I gave everybody a message. And then later they told me how it felt to them to have a message from me. And that was maybe some of the most meaningful thing, because they told me how they could really feel that when I spoke it. They could feel it in their heart, they could feel it. And I agree with Mark, there's a feeling to it, there's a concentrated amount of information that goes directly to the soul, the higher self. And so you're getting all kinds of things. It unlocks codes, it activates people, it calms me because it builds up in me. If I don't speak it, like it'll want to speak, and if I don't speak it, it really, like, it builds up like a stress in me. That's how it works in me. So I use it in healing with people. And what I do, it seems, is I'm able to just, like Mark said, it's like I hook up with someone's soul, and I can hook up with their soul, and I can see their soul. And so when I speak that language, I'm speaking directly to their soul. And we usually are both.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. The last person on my list here is the newcomer. I had a long conversation with Phil Gruber, who is here from Singapore. This guy knows an awful lot about light languages. He teaches light languages. He even has some free webinars that people can attend. Are you there, Phil? Can you open Phil's mic?
I'm here, Grant.
Oh, you got no photo there. But anyway, tell us a little bit about your background with light language. And
it's a little after 8 o'clock here in Singapore. I'm afraid if I turn the camera on, I'm not having a good hair day. People might get really afraid.
There you go. I have that every day. So, okay, go ahead. Tell us about your background with light language. We had a long conversation with Lori from Toronto, maybe a month and a half ago. Tell us about your background in light language and what you do in your seminars that you put on.
Well, my background is when I was 6 years old, and I think a lot of people have probably shared similar experiences. I was hit by a car when I was 6 years old. They estimate the car was going about 60 miles an hour. I was thrown maybe 100 feet up in the air, landed down the street, but there wasn't a scratch on my body. This was a classic case of a walk-in, where one of my higher identities, probably one of my angelic identities, came in to save my life. I think if it's really necessary that we're on this planet, we have quote unquote high-level contracts, the higher dimensional identities will intervene. They usually don't like to be active in this world. They take a great deal of risk when they do that. But for about 10, 11, 12 years, I was kind of like living in two worlds. And it took me a long time, maybe till the 70s, 80s, when great waves of indigos, whether you want to call us psychic, super psychic children, children of the blue ray, blue star, Melchizedek's, sons and daughters of God, that I really could share what I learned while I was simultaneously existing in this reality and also multiple realities at the same time. We had a wonderful conversation, Grant, and I'm so glad that Lori told me about the call, because I really have so much to share. I don't know if this is the place to do it all. I know we have a panel with amazing, amazing people, but I do have a lot to add. I've been teaching light language, sacred geometry for probably since the early 70s. And teaching the technology of light language, what it really is. Just to put everything in perspective, the light language is contained in our DNA. The more DNA you have activated, the more access you have to your higher multidimensional identities, because each strand of DNA is actually coded to a specific harmonic, a specific band of frequency. I know people out there are in this call have had Pleiadian experience, multiple Pleiadian identities. That's fifth dimensional stuff. That's has to do with the fifth strand. A lot of us are activating our fourth, fifth, and sixth strands, and as each DNA strand becomes activated, we have more access to light languages. I mean, let's face it, all languages are light. All consciousness is composed of light and sound, and the more our DNA activates, we'll have access to our higher dimensional identities for Pleiadian, Sirian, Arcturian, Andromedan, all the way up to the Lyran levels and higher. So I don't want to hog this at all.
We're still going to do an interview. We'll do a full interview because, well, tell me a little bit about your course, but we'll do an interview with the extended stuff, because we talked for quite a while that one night about this. and we didn't publish it. But tell me a little bit about the courses that you are, and I guess we'll try to link up all these people by email so that people can exchange, because now people know there's other people out there, and you guys may be able to share with each other. But tell me about your courses that you have right now.
I will. That would be wonderful, because I'm so glad I'm on this call and you're allowing me to participate, because there are some just amazing, fascinating stories here and experiences that people have. I think a lot of us have had the experiences, but a lot of it is on like we're meant to come into this information when it's the most needed, to be of dedicated service, to be of sincere service to us in the world, to help everybody out there understand what they're experiencing, what light language is, how it's tied in with the DNA, consciousness, the ascension process. I think you've assembled and just an amazing, amazing bunch of people here and experiencers. I think when we all get together like this, we can really start to make sense of everything we've experienced, from just the experience level to what I teach, which is the real technology and the waveform nature of light language and consciousness. We can really begin to have a much more elevated and exalted perspective to understand why we're here, what our purpose is, that everything is connected. I can put the link to it's called The Gates of Light, the technology of light language and the magic of sacred geometry. It's going to be in a couple of weeks. I have a very special guest, Marianne Savino. Some people out there may know this person. In the chat, I'll put the link, the Zoom ID and the password. Okay, and if anybody in the course of this 2 hours has any questions, I'm glad to chime in anytime. I'll be very happy and blessed to do another interview with you, Grant. And I'm just really, really excited to be here. And I can't wait to hear from all these other people, beautiful people on this call. Okay, I'll put it in the chat, the link to the next webinar I'll be doing on light language. It's going to be really, really fascinating. We're going to get into really what it is, you know, in terms of what I said, the waveform nature of reality, its connection with the DNA, the ascension process, why the indigos aren't just yesterday's news, why it's more relevant than ever that we understand who we truly are, why we're here, where we come from, the map of universal stargates, what the stargates really are, the link to our higher identities in time, past lives, future lives, parallel identities. It's very fascinating. A lot of these people might recognize my name because my first wife was well, I won't talk about that right now, but I'll just put the link to the
webinar,
to the webinar. It's a free webinar, love donations accepted, but it's all free. I want these webinars and the information to get out there. But what I really like to do now is hear from the rest of the panel, all these just amazing, beautiful people, and yourself.
Okay. Now, before we started, Alfred Weber wondered what this was actually going to be about. So can we sort of, if you want, you can unmute your mics at the bottom left-hand corner to speak. A lot of people want to hear light language. So let's go around, and whoever wants to do some light language, whether you want to do a healing or a message, explain what you're going to do. And let's let people know what we're talking about here in terms of light language. So you just unmute the mic and come on, and let's hear some light language.
Hello, my name is Daniel, and I've been speaking light language for about a year now or two. I still don't have the whole grasp of it, but impressions definitely do come when I speak light language. I'm going to try to say something in light language, and if anybody knows what language I'm speaking, please do chime in.
Beautiful. Go ahead.
Abri, Aju, Azi, Anizi, Alizi, Aruji, Azuri, Azizi, Anuzi. And that's pretty much how I do it.
Beautiful.
So I was activated by a friend of mine.
So people talk about activation. What do you, and I want everybody else to chime in on this to me as well. What are people talking about when they say they're activated? What do you understand be activated?
From what I understand of activated, I'm activating pieces of my DNA to speak like language, to start speaking like language. And after a while, it's really just about practicing to get that impression, you know, to keep practicing and to get impressions. So I'm still really much a beginner at it.
Beautiful, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also very interested, Grant, in if other light language speakers understand what's being said by the other speakers. It'll be interesting to see if there's that connection.
Okay. First of all, does anybody know what Daniel was speaking? And then we go to whoever wants to do some light language.
It
as well.
sounded to me like it had some Arcturian influences. The Arcturian that I've experienced has a lot of the rolling of the R's and
Beautiful.
that type of rolling. It's very interesting, but that's the feeling I got from that. And those, I have several people that are very close to me that speak those particular dialects, and that sounded very familiar. And the energy, one thing that's very important about these languages, and I think Linda was saying this, is the way people feel this. These are very much empathic languages. They're not, there's not always a word for word translation because the information is so dense and layered. And it's been said that a simple phrase in light language can contain an entire library's worth of information. So if we look at it, no, it does not speak to our intellect very often, if at all. It does not speak to our ego mind, does speak directly to the soul. And so when Daniel was speaking, I was feeling those very familiar Arcturian frequencies.
John, I saw some of your videos. You talk about humor. Can you do the one that you do with the humor where they do the sort of I don't know if it's a joke or whatever, but you do that.
Okay, so let me just preface it with this, okay? Light language to me is an expression of energy, and it's the intent behind the energy. So I'll use one of my primary dialects, which is Ancient Pleiadian, and I want to do a little experiment. If everybody can kind of just close their eyes for a minute, and rather than, I know this is going to sound silly, rather than listen, try and feel it, okay? Ndi torehe na makugiba bokwasha, zire tatarama acheking, lota taharabe beki koki, kurita tore machine jendarae sinimeme kia. Lura baratata asepetiti ri shishwa lura vi do chiamama separeto tatabakai jokra bavanyama kinkin re simema uri joshwala ala aritotike hahala koreba makamiki zepuri rishishimoto toreme jemai hai kokya.
Thank you. Wonderful. And you speak how many languages?
I have 3 primary dialects, but I've counted as lost count somewhere in the high 30s, depending on what am I tapping into during meditation. That really dictates the dialect for the most part. But it's
sorry. You talk also about activating people's DNA. I think you talk about 350 people or something. So if you were to get my friend Mark, could you activate him?
Well, it works this way, okay? This is my
Go ahead, John. I'm ready.
Okay, so my job, I'm fully aware of why I'm here, who I am, and so forth. I'm a messenger. That's all I am. It's very, very simple. And what I do is I hand somebody a letter that they wrote to themselves. It's a spiritual letter. Now, whether they open that letter up and read it and how they interpret it, well, that's up to them. But activations are, in my opinion, you need to be willing. And when I spent a summer a season up at ECETI, and I did a lot of groups up there, and there was one day I was walking out in a field, and I suddenly began to sing the song. And I realized, and when Lightstar was talking about music and light language, what I realized is I was thinking back into many of my past lives, and I realized that prayer was done in the song, in the form of song, as opposed to spoken word. Now, why is that? Because of the delivery and the intent behind it creates a spiritual harmonic. So there is this song that came to me that I would get everybody in the group singing, and it is light language. It's ancient Pleiadian, and I can sing it for you if you guys would like.
Go ahead.
And what it does is it allows, once people start to do that, it breaks down the ego barrier. And I would play a little trick with them, and I would say, okay, everybody, and I'd write down the lyrics to this and have some sheets, and everybody would be singing the song. And as they're singing, I'm like, don't stop. And I would say every single time in every group, you all realize that you are singing light language right now. And they would be, their eyes wide, and they really be feeling it. And so what that did is that completely removed the ego mind barrier and allowed them to feel. And then once we did that, we went into a little exercise, and people would suddenly start either singing or expressing or talking in so many different dialects. And if you have a group of people and everybody starts speaking light language for the very first time, it's incredibly powerful. Tears are flowing, the emotion, the true emotion, and it's not a sadness. Those are tears of gratitude and tears of being home. And I know that a lot of, I guess, if you want to use the term star seeds or whatever, those of us who have come to this planet to help in this ascension, a lot of us don't feel at home here. We're not from this planet. And this, in all honesty, this world makes no sense to me whatsoever. But I have a very deep contract and agreement to come here. Back to the song. Anyway, so the song itself, what it does is it creates a harmonic that people can kind of take part in or link into spiritually. And once they've start singing the song, I think it's the doorway. And Daniel, I mean, I bet you my last dollar you have many more dialects in there than just that one. I can feel it wanting to come out of you, and it's very powerful. But whatever you guys would like, I don't want to take up too much time, and I want to share as well, and I want to hear everybody else's speech. So.
Sing a little bit of the song, and then I'll play a song from Scotland, a girl that we interviewed that's not here tonight.
Okay. Leano no lahi 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 Leano no lahi lahi Leano no lahi 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 Leano no lahi lahi.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Here's one from a girl by the name of Tress, to give you a little background. She's going to be, the interview that we did with her will be on YouTube. It isn't up yet, but she comes from a planet. This song is about her planet. She claims she's one of 6,000 people put on the earth. She's in contact with the feline beings. So here's her. Hopefully this will work because we don't have a share screen. I'll just play the...
It's not working. Are you playing it?
All right, it's not working. Too bad. Well, we'll put it in the version that goes on with the videos that aren't working either. But we'll stick that in there. I thought my mic would pick it up. Anybody else want to start? Take control of the mic and give us an example of light language and where it's from. And Mike, one of my questions is, I guess for anybody, is I think John just talked about it, the fact that it's not talking to the conscious mind. It always puzzles me why light language is out there if the people don't understand what they're saying. So who wants to do light language now?
I can go. I can
Oh,
go.
Linda?
I'm Linda. So this one is going to be just to go right to the heart so that you feel loved. Imiro kostuna wande kataro sush na makatele kasur ema katarenyin to tawatere al amor e che si tistuna kotroveke la makotro santari shiftuna mo or santarai lo or and er santara kera simikata lo ala alistini kor umukur anamika santa ala mo urstumakari kisi tum oro kater ur ama ale u la aliste kitre kotum mi ilo kusur al amor assim castor al amor isir or inkimitai.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Very nice, Linda.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, Grant, if we could have Desta read off some of the comments about what people are feeling. John started off by asking sort of, instead of listening, try to feel. I felt like waves. I felt like waves were coming upon me as you were speaking. I'm not sure, Desta, what are some of the other comments that are on the chat lines?
I just sent you a couple. I was sending it to you in chat, just 2 questions we had. And one of them was if everyone understands exactly what they're saying. And the other one was if anyone sings in light language, which we just got a demonstration.
I saw one of the comments was somebody felt like it's partly funny. It was like a joyful. I felt peace when you were speaking as well, John and Linda. There's such a connection to the language. It's very, very interesting. So who did you want to put on next, John or Grant?
Lightstar, whoever wants to sort of jump in here and.
Okay, I'll jump in.
Okay.
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am. Okay, so gosh, there's so much good stuff on here and so much to talk about with it. But
healing, light language?
Yes, but I wanted to address your question, Grant, and it probably will address a lot of the people's questions about it because it's coming in about, well, what's, if people don't understand what you're saying, like what's that all about, right? But what I always like to say is that if you put 4 people in front of someone speaking light language and then you ask people afterwards, those 4 people may get different things from it based upon where they're at, based upon their experiences. And, so we're all unique and different, and they'll have different experiences. Some of them may cross over, but it's more important about the feeling oriented of it rather than trying to analyze it, translate it into what we have deemed as our English, French, German, Spanish, languages, because light language is really not, it shouldn't really be even called a language, because it's more of a soul language of anything else. Rather than diluting it down, when we do that, it does not take away everything, but when you dilute it and try to translate word for word and everything, it does sort of dissipate some of the energy that was originally intended to come through, which is really divine energy that's coming through a lot of the time. So hopefully that addressed that one question and other people's question. And so I guess I'll jump in here and do a couple of languages, just that one might roll one into the other. And so just again, everybody close your eyes and just kind of feel into whatever is happening. Don't try to understand it. If translation comes, then great. But if not, just enjoy. I kehekea shan hasam ashi holta aki hekea hitia sana atai Su hana tisha nkom asa antaye. Su hana shi ukai te itia. Tana aki wakan ase itia kora. Si iti hiishia ka kuhana etesa iwa ewa sa akiwa. Dena akaro gunta shiishia kai. Sono to ormakai se itse hanatara. Biaran zegi ajnagi zadana zilgaro mageste. Besta vel halakel halameshtek. Si kal halamakesh. Sur halmaeki. Besto avati abashtel. Bakyanak rakenistek. Marhalik rashan almalatak. Hekirak mahi. Sur arhantalamek. Shivaran hasaka besta. Beaka halek samata hamalak meresheng hila kampas behetekiak marataras.
Wow.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
I just want to share this one thing too about that, just in terms of John was talking about this before too, in that you know, all of us can speak these languages when we open up to them. Okay, so when people are like, wow, you know, I don't know how I would do that. But the main thing that people have is fear, and fear is what blocks people from just coming out with it. So I think probably most of our jobs that are people that are doing this for a living, a lot of it is just stripping away the fear from everybody so that they don't worry about what everybody thinks of them. So that not everybody just goes, okay, well, I don't want to sound weird, or, you know, people are gonna think I'm crazy and want to lock me up in the loony bin. Well, most of us have already gone through those experiences of feeling that way. Hey, someone's gonna lock me up. Hey, people think I need to go to the cuckoo's, you know, nest somewhere and just fly away, you know. But we're really bringing this courage to this planet and to people here. So I think the light language is actually bringing that out more than anything else, is allowing people to just be brave, be courageous, and come out with your energy, whoever you are and whatever you are speaking and bringing. So I think that's really important to everybody here.
Beautiful.
That was beautiful. I got the impression, the one before you, I got the impression of Syrian, and you, I got the impression that you were speaking some kind of elven language. It was very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I could tell you, but again, and I'd go back to what John was saying, because I echo this, where there's so many different dialects within one race that, but the ones that came through, I will say the first one was coming through with Andromedan, and the second one was coming through Syrian. So there was that in there for sure. But those are just the, you know, like I said, it could be bringing one Andromedan language in that gosh, somebody else speaks it and you're like, well, that didn't sound like my Andromedan, or, you know, someone else speaks Syrian. Well, that didn't sound like that Syrian, because they're all different. It's kind of similar to when you go to Spain, right? Even in Spain here, there's like many different dialects that are even in Spain itself, the country. So we have different dialects and they're going to sound different. But, you know, just tuning into the energy that I bring, even one image that I create in my visionary art portraits, or, you know, beings, there's many different other beings. They don't all just look like that one, but we're, you know, bringing through one at a time. So it's to each his own, and to each whoever, you know, brings in that flavor. It might sound different. It might be from that one, but it may be, you know, a variation of it or a hybrid of it.
Beautiful. Hildegard, are you here?
Hang on, trying to unmute myself.
I just want to make a point. When I was in Brantford, this is maybe what, 4 years ago, you were on stage with that guy. I really hadn't heard light language yet, and you and this guy are talking back and forth. I mean, I could have fallen on the floor. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was sort of like, and it just sort of, you guys just started talking it. You didn't even explain what was going on, really. So can you do some light language and explain your, how many languages you do and how they fit in?
I wish I knew. Like in real life here, in the 3D life, I'm an interpreter. I've been in languages and translation all my life. However, the light language thing came to me through this friend, because he wanted to visit with me on this spaceship that I go to sometimes to meet up with my family. And I'm really glad people said that here earlier. I forgot who mentioned it, that we are all multidimensional beings. Yes, we are here, we are incarnate on Earth now, but we are also coming from other dimensions, and we have other lifetimes and different experiences. And so the memory, you know, body is also called cosmic library. The memory of that is in our DNA. And from what I understand, that DNA to include, again, was mentioned before, was all these different experiences and languages from these different realms. Now, with regard to this gentleman, I've never met him before. He lived 500 kilometers away from Toronto. And we had heard from one another because I'd interviewed a friend of his. And that lady had suggested we communicate. And then he says, well, listen, talk to your buddy there, to the Andromedans, and let's see whether we can have a conversation. And in that telephone conversation, we started to talk in light language. And then he says, now you tell me what he's telling you in English, and then see if I can pick this up in light language or translate it in light language. I don't think I can do that. My understanding of light language is that the processor, our logical mind, can only process so many bits per whatever. And the light language is there to really activate all the DNA strands that apparently have been dormant for so long a time. And so whenever I hear light language, as you know, the previous ones, I really feel it. I felt it tingling. My heart started to pump, like it was this vibration in my heart center when Linda was speaking. I could totally relate to what Lightstar was saying. It just felt like a shivering through my system. So I intellectually don't know anything about light language. I cannot explain it. Hence, I would love to be involved with Philip's class to learn more, to satisfy my intellect, which sometimes still comes in and interferes with me letting the language flow. However, I would like to give you a little sample. Ishana satu kutama ilamana katati ilama nusata ishana sukamara taratu isatu ulana manana inama ushati isakatanama ina isho suta tukatanamasa ilana tukata shuta misatina namana onama sisata shita olani ikatina tanwana tu asaka nishatit kanatu sama ikata kitatanamana tu oshata.
Can I just chime something in here? That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You see the similarities in these light languages that everybody is toning?
Yeah.
It's because for most of us, our 5th and 6th strands are beginning to activate. Lightstar is absolutely right. When we can convert fear to love, when we can learn the true nature of forgiveness and gratitude, and we can get rid of the karmic miasmic content of our DNA will activate naturally. All these languages are encoded within us. The DNA holds the memory. We have multiple simultaneous existences in many universes, multidimensional identity levels. And you see that what's coming through now because of alignment of interdimensional stargates, what have you. We are starting to tone the memory of the waveform, the memory of these languages, and they are languages of love. These races, for the most part, for the vast majority, are benevolent, pro-human races. They want us to awaken to our higher dimensional identities and the secrets to who we really are and what our purpose is. And you notice that the tonations are very, very similar, because the light languages that we're most close to is Pleiadian and Syrian, Andromedan, Arcturian, Lyran. They're very, very high dimensional languages, but the ones that are the clearest, the ones that come from the deepest recesses of the heart, where we're all connected, are the Pleiadian and Syrian languages that are connected to our 5th and 6th DNA strand. And if people really listen with an open heart and the intelligence of the heart, these languages are meant to clear our residual karma, our karmic miasmic blueprint. These races, they are our higher dimensional identities. They are a part of us. They're not separated from us, only in terms of frequency. But as we master forgiveness, gratitude, sincerity, compassion, we will heal our karma. We'll learn how to think correctly and adjust our thoughts to the higher elevated thoughts. And the memory of ourselves and our higher dimensional identities will come back, that we can use here on this earth for the uplifting of the entire human race. It's beautiful, just extraordinarily beautiful. These are languages of love and light, no doubt.
This is what I feel is such an incredible amount of love flowing through. You know what I mean? But I don't know about anybody else, but I feel this deep love. It's like this cuddly, soft blanket that kind of comes over me when this language flows through. Now, I'm not sure, like telepathy is a 7-dimensional tool of communication. Do other dimensional beings have language to communicate like we do? I thought it all happens in telepathy. Is that not so? Maybe somebody has answers to that.
Can I chime in on that one? The first person I ever had a conversation in light language with was Salretta Antaria, where we had telepathic communication at the same time. We were both having the same visions. So I have to agree with that. I think that a very strong element of these languages is telepathic in nature. It's the expression of that true emotion, not the heart emotion, the soul emotion, the root of what emotion truly is, the real love, the creation of life, that love. And I think that it roots us when we can tap into that dialect. And one other thing I wanted to add that I find is that the languages are laden with all the sacred tones. Where most common or most known sacred tone is Om, but it creates a sound and it corresponds with certain chakras and so forth. But all these languages are completely laden and layered with these vibrational patterns, which again, maybe that's the mechanism that triggers the activation of the DNA. But back to the actual telepathic aspects of it, there's something that happens when people exchange light language, and I think a great deal of it is indeed telepathic. I get a lot of visions. Hildebrand, when you were talking, that's a very similar dialect to one of my star sisters that I'm incredibly close with, and I had a lot of visions of beautiful plant life and warmth and sunlight and breezes and things of that nature, that true perfect life, that creation. That's what I was feeling when you were speaking. And I think, and it goes back to something that was said earlier about each person is going to get something different from it. It's layered in such a way. There is no singular, how do I say this? There's no singular meaning. It's a universal meaning, which it's limitless. So I've done light language activations for someone and sent them a video. And 3 years later, they call me back, say, I get something different out of it every single time I watch that video. I feel something different. And I've done quite a few of those. And I be honest, I'd forgotten I'd even done that one. And then they played it back to me, and it lit me up. My own light language coming back to me was like a full circle type thing, where I felt every chakra, and like that warm blanket feeling around you. But it's that energy, it's that harmonic that gets created. And when multiple people come together and they express such a divine truth, something very, very important and incredible happens, and it almost defies description. It's a feeling that I don't think that I have the capability of really describing. It's beyond how I can express verbally or anything in the physical world.
It's really, thank you, John, for that, because that was really great. And I want to just also say one thing about the telepathy as well, is that, for instance, for me, I started to get some language that came through from the fairy realms and from the elemental fairy realms. And yet I would say to myself, like, well, I would like to speak this language, but it's not coming through like a language. And I was communicating in the elementals about their language. And I would say, how can I speak it? Because you guys are telepathic. So how do I speak telepathic, verbally? And the only way that it came through for me, this is just my own way of bringing it through, was through a whisper. It was like the whisper or the wind in the trees. And so when I started to speak it, it was like the sound got created from just that essence of, if I were to put myself into that wind in the trees, and then what that would sound like. And that's how it came out, even though their language is primarily telepathic. So I think that when we can tune into those sound frequencies and those sound vibrations, which everything is created from sound first. When you get up to the higher echelons, as I know a lot of you guys on here, John and Philip, I know you guys are all into, that sound frequency creates and manifests everything we're seeing really here in this manifestation, although some say it's just an illusionary hologram, but yet we are still seeing it. We created that here from sound, from sacred geometry, all of the shapes and the sounds that came first. So I think a lot of us are tapping into that. We actually are able to just tap into that, and then we can bring it into a way that brings it home or brings it into our senses here so people can experience it. And I do feel that a lot of us are coming here to be bridges. We're bridges so that people can start to experience this kind of language in a way that doesn't make any sense. And thank goodness it doesn't make sense in that way, because too much of our world here is put into little boxes and we got to figure it out. We got to analyze it all. Whereas now we're being told to really go out of the box and go back to source, go back to source energy. And our first, usually when I see people coming out with language, this is not always the case, but it was in mine. I've been speaking since I was 9 years old, but that first language that came through was what I like to call my mother tongue. That's like the closest representation that can be to almost like the speaking in tongues. I know somebody asked that in the chat, and I get asked that question all the time. Like, what's the difference between that and speaking in tongues? And my first answer is usually the first thing that comes forth for people is typically going to be closest to their mother tongue, their mother language, where they're from, even if you want, but just connecting directly with source, your own language to God directly. And then maybe you start branching off into the other dialects with the other languages, with the other races that kind of make sense. But usually that first one is straight source energy. And again, it's just coming through in a form. But that's what I found anyways about, so hopefully that answers some of the questions about the speaking in tongues. It's somewhat different, but the languages that we get, like Arcturian or, Andromedan or Pleiadian, these languages may be a little different, but the ones that usually come just straight out of you is like you speaking to God directly.
Beautiful. Let me make a comment, then I want to go to Mary Rodwell about her research. For people that want to sort of volunteer, light language people, you mentioned speaking in tongues. It reminded me of the fact I've got a book called Contact Modalities coming out, and in there I use all the different modalities. One of them is speaking in tongues, and they've actually done research on speaking in tongues people in MRIs. And I have contacted the professor. I guess the university shut down. I'm pretty sure he will go along with it. But what we'd like to do is put people with light language into MRIs. And what happens in the speaking in tongues is that the frontal lobes basically shut down, that the language center that you'd think would be used shuts down. And it basically proves, like a lot of people will say, oh, these people are just making this stuff up. When you get in an MRI machine, everybody produces the same pattern. So anybody who wants to volunteer, it's on the East Coast, unfortunately, but I'm going to present to him to do light language people in the MRI machine to see what kind of pattern is produced. This is at a university on the East Coast of the United States. But I'd like to go to Mary Rodwell. Mary Rodwell, unfortunately, and as I said, we are going to put this in an addition to the video. When we produce this video, we are going to add these videos that we aren't able to do because we don't have the share screen. But Mary Rodwell has worked with children, and this is very dramatic. You can say adults are making this stuff up or they're crazy or whatever, but Mary's worked with kids. I heard the one with the 5-year-old child. It was unbelievable, and the writing as well. So Mary, can you talk about some of your work that you've done and the importance of these new children that have come into the world that appear to be coming to you, and you've got a lot of these kids, and why is this important?
Thank you for that. The thing that's so important to me about the children is they're coming unfiltered. They're still coming with that lack of programming, which gives their information a huge integrity as far as I'm concerned. And I've got lots of clips of different children from 4 or 5-year-olds. One story I will tell you is of a 9-year-old whose mother said, my son speaks to me in light language. I speak back in light language. The difference is he knows what he's saying and I don't understand what I'm saying. But I'll play the 5-year-old and I'll also play you a bit of the 8-year-old. And then I'll explain to you what a 16-year-old Spanish girl told me of her understanding of the connection to Terran languages, just to give you some idea of what how she understands it. But the 5-year-old is this one.
Okay, what does it say? Okay, what does it say? Lista, de toda manera, yo. Lista, de muy materia lute. Y todo niño motel, motel. No, yes. Pilare tosh. What does that mean? That means listen. So half of it means listen. Be smart, I would say. And listen to your body. And it also says, now, who you can be, you can be.
Who you can be, you can be. So listen to your body, and who you can be, you can be. I'll play you the other one.
And when you write like that, what does it say? The same thing.
She's written the script, and it means the
it says Mama and goodbye. Bye.
So I'm going to now play you the 8-year-old from the UK. what I'd like to just tell you, I need my glasses for this. The Marina, the 16-year-old that speaks various languages, explained Arcturian, she said, is similar to Japanese, Chinese, and Vietnamese. Andromedan is similar to Spanish and the language she speaks. Syrian, it sounds like the Egyptian, Norwegian, or Nordic. And what she spoke was reaching oneness in the light as a collective was what she was speaking. But the other interesting thing is, and I don't know if you'd like to hear this, is there was a video done of ET Contact, it's here. And two of the young men who I've written about, one of them is called Zach, and I'll play you him speaking on this documentary. And he explains about what he's actually saying. I'll play it for you now.
Sua set eleaka e suluun tuk ewe elo amana e sala am at elo ala onkish susuma etala elo lo tuiki shiseya elo at sa osaretam mana e kuleate su shase e mono tu kiawa art etsunu etula akitsesa ese sala tu shasan. It doesn't exactly translate into English. The key to this language is that it's not transmitting data verbally through the mind. It's transmitting images through the voice. And dolphins do the same thing. Dolphins can transmit pictures to each other of what they're seeing through sonar.
There have been times where I have spoken a language that is very representative of a particular civilization or a particular group of beings. And when I would speak it, they would be there on the other side, listening and sending back information.
Can you give a message that you feel is important in this our language? That's even better.
All right. I'll try this, okay?
One of the cases that
So there's two young men that I've written about in The New Human, but also, interestingly, Antonio believes he's an ambassador from Arcturus, and he's an ecological engineer come to this planet to create a new ecology. The interesting thing about the dolphin sounds was a 7-year-old, when I was in the States working with children, and this 7-year-old said to me, I can speak dolphin. Do you want to hear it? And I said, yes, I'd love to. So there he goes and he speaks dolphin. So it was quite interesting to me that, you know, that Zach told me that dolphins do the same thing. So the connections really become quite profound. Any comments too? I've got lots more, but I don't want to take up everyone's time. But I will say, in terms of the frequencies, one young man I speak about was only 10 when he had interactions with beings, and they would basically overshadow him. So when he played the piano, he played certain songs. And what's interesting is one of the songs that he said his mum needed to video, he did it completely spontaneously. He did it with absolutely no thought from the beings. And one of the songs is called Decoding DNA. And he plays the piano with this frequency called Decoding DNA. He played altogether 6 songs, and one of them's called Arrival. There's another one called Meditation. There's a whole range of them that he said, this is what this is. But what we're really talking about, after all, is frequency, and the frequency of activating DNA. And this is what I understand from this, is that we have at least 12 or more inserts of our star family's DNA. And as we open up and get activated, we're tapping into our heritage, so that we start to feel, as we're activating our Pleiadian DNA, we start to feel connected to the Pleiades. then as we start to activate more, we find ourselves connected to more and more of our origins. So for me, the one thing I do want to say is that one word alone, as a young lady explained to me in a video I did some years ago, Communication and Contact, where she explained to me that one word alone in this language can be a compressed file of data. In other words, as Christmas can bring in all these other avenues for you to explore, from Christmas trees to the feeling to whatever, she explained that one word or one script or one symbol can contain enough information to fill a room with encyclopedias. So we're talking about a download sometimes of a compressed file of incredible data that is being made available to us as we upgrade. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. That's just one very small part of this.
Yeah, that actually totally makes sense, Mary, and thank you so much for the work that you do. When I was first waking up, I was getting your CDs on the different kinds of aliens. You do great work. But because I had this language and I was trying to learn about it, I went to a Cryon event about 2 years ago, and I personally went up to him and asked him. I didn't tell him I had it. I just said, well, what about this light language? And Cryon's a channel to Lee Carroll, been channeling 30 some years. And he said, you know, for a long time, Cryon's been saying the old tools don't work anymore. And light language, that's one of the new tools on the planet, and it's exploding. And so it's like everybody's, as we raise in consciousness, as our vibration raises, it's opening that up. And I agree with you about that amount of data. He says too, it contains large quantities of data in a very small, it's like small bits. And anybody who read Jim Sparks' book and watched him learn that language, they started out with like, you have this much, and then they compressed that into a little letter. Then they took those little letters and they compressed it into something smaller until massive quantities of data were in one or two little symbols. And that's sort of how this language works, is it's got all of this going on. That's why people feel it in their hearts. And I see Paul and Mike over there nodding their heads so that they relate to that as well. Hi. So it's really, I think we're just so learning about it. But one of the things, one of the channels, the very first one who talked to me said that, you know, light workers are sharing it among themselves, enjoying it among themselves, and they need to get it out to the population because it does activate DNA, it wakes people up, and so we're part of activating the consciousness of the human planet by speaking this publicly. And I thank you, Grant, for doing something like this, because it's an opportunity to start to get that out in a more public manner, and it will affect people who hear it.
I'm just wondering if anybody's had any experience with the water babies. I live in a very remote rural area, and I have a river running down one side of my property and a waterfall. And sometimes if I've done a lot of meditation, I can hear the water babies. Other times I've had, for example, Star Group come here. We were doing meditation to make contact, and we'd go outside and you hear the water babies, like literally just singing. It's like this whole other language at a really high, kind of like a high frequency that comes through. Another time I had it come through, I have a friend who's a well-known Canadian composer. Toronto Opera Company recently did one of her operas, and she was up here, and you know, we're out back, and then suddenly the water babies come through, and she's like, what is that? You know?
It sounds very orchestrated, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Any comments on?
I've had something similar to that as well on a lot of occasions, and it's an incredible experience. I think that the whole idea is when we tap into these higher levels of awareness, it's so vast and there's so many facets to it. That's just a slight, small expression of what's there. And I think that, and like Linda was saying, and you know, this tool of light language, which I know in my heart everybody has this, but they can use it to open up more experiences, just like your water babies. And I think that, something like that itself is light language. And when you're hearing them, they are indeed activating you as well, and with a very layered, dense, amount of information or spiritual energies. I think it's all one thing. And I think light language doesn't necessarily have to be done in the terms of a spoken word or even, a song. People that write it, that's vibration, that's visual vibration. And that's just as powerful in some ways. Art, when you look at art, that's probably, why so many people who are spiritual are drawn to these beautiful images, because again, it's vibration and an expression of vibration. So when I heard you talking about the water babies, I had an experience not too long ago that was very, very similar to what you were describing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And I also have, sometimes I'll get haven't had it for a couple of years now, but Sasquatch, and I can tell it's Sasquatch. But I live way out in the woods, right? So just like the overlay of all the the different elemental languages, I find interesting.
That's a whole other show in itself, yes. But some of my favorite experiences ever.
Can somebody speak Sasquatch here?
Well, I spoke light language to them. I had experiences in Western Massachusetts and Vermont and New York State, and then also up in Washington, up at the East Eddy Ranch when I was there. And most of the contact I had was telepathic, which it was very much images, but there was some speech, and it was my dialect given back to me.
Yeah, interesting.
Mary, you had the 5-year-old was doing written language as well. Does anybody here do written stuff, like in terms of automatic writing and stuff like that? Mary, you can talk maybe a little bit about these kids write it as well as speak it as well, right?
Yes. My research is indicating there are many ways we're being activated, and many of you are aware enough to know that star language, light language, universal language, soul language, whatever you want to bring in that order frequency. But obviously the frequencies are coming in from planetary systems as well. They're coming in energetically with the new children. The children are coming in with those frequencies. We're sharing them once we are aware of the codes, or we listen to the codes which come through star languages, but also through the scripts and the many different scripts. And the interesting thing is, I talk about 2 girls, both around 7 years old. One of them had been taken to Mars, come back with a particular symbol that she'd been shown on the craft. And she wanted to know if any other of the children had ever seen this symbol as well. And I had another family in the US whose daughter was around the same age that talked about being taken to different planets and to Mars. And the father didn't say anything about the symbol, but said to her, "Have you seen this symbol?" And she said, "Oh yes, I've seen it on the spacecraft. And it means that they're there, they're watching you, and we're connected to them," and some more information. And then I sent this information back to the other family and the young girl, and they explained to her what this other young child had said. And she said, "Yes, that's exactly accurate." So here we have 2 7-year-old girls that have never spoken to one another, that had no idea what was going on, other than the fact that they'd remembered this symbol, and it was significant to them from both different places in the US. So the symbols are being taught simply because, as Linda was saying, is that the symbols are often compressed files of data that we're not meant to unpack, certainly not at this moment, but they're waiting. And I'll throw this hypothesis out to you, is as we activate and we connect more to our star origins, and I'm saying origins because I think we've got a bit of many different star origins. The bottom line is, as we get activated, we are then going to need new software for the new upgraded human. And I believe this is the new software. I don't know if any of you have seen the film Lucy. It's well worth watching, because as Lucy gets activated by these chemicals, she becomes more and more multidimensionally aware and has to make sense of her multidimensional sight. And I sense that a lot of these are the programs, the software, the information we're going to need once we get activated sufficiently to be more of our true galactic selves, which will be absolutely multidimensional. So that's just one of my theories, along with many others.
Well, I just want, thank you, Mary. I want to chime in on that. I really appreciate you bringing that up with and also Grant, to bring that up with the symbols and what the decoding of the symbols. I started to get symbols embedding them into my artwork, because that's part of what I'm doing now. And it started to unpack or unfold for me little by little over the course of a few years. And as I'm putting these symbols, mine are scripts that I am writing as well for instance, I'm doing my second Oracle deck, and it's going to be at least 11 of the star people that we're all mostly familiar with in that deck. And at the bottom has the script of the different languages or symbols. It's more symbols, I would say, that come through, and that is embedded in there to actually bring forth the energy of that particular race. And for people that really resonate with that will resonate with it for a reason. It may not be, if I created the Orion image and it has the Orion script, it's not necessarily that that person is Orion. It means that whatever is encoded in there is something that is beneficial for that person to unpack for themselves. And yes, I do feel that, since this is all relatively coming onto the planet, and not everybody has a whole lot of experience about how to unpack this one symbol that has like volumes of information, but yet we are supposed to be bringing it anyway, and because people recognize it, people will start to, it's almost like when we bring too much light into our bodies and our body isn't ready for it, what happens? Our nervous system starts to short circuit everywhere, and we have to kind of slow that back a little bit just to absorb. So these things get little by little. And I think someone else mentioned, you look at one symbol and you get something, maybe a year from that date, now you look at it again and there's more and more coming forth. So it's really powerful that we're bringing this to the table and opening it up so people can have more experiences further down the road, down into the future timelines, when more and more future generations of ours, when we won't be here anymore necessarily on this planet, but the children of children's children will be much more adept at receiving and understanding, and it'll just be like brushing their teeth, when we get there, that is.
Hey, Grant, unpacking symbols, it reminds me of Rendlesham Enigma. When Jim Penniston touched the symbol on the spacecraft and he got a download of binary code, which is now in the process of being interpreted. So I thought that was a meaningful experience he had with that UFO in 1980 in England.
And just to add to that, and then someone else can speak, there's a second book coming out that's going to be just basically on the symbols. Basically, they're writing an entire book on what was in that 5 symbols or whatever it was on the side of the craft.
Yeah, just to pick up on the concept of, on the notion of symbols, the one experience that I'd had of light language before today, which was in Barcelona in September of last year, was light language combined with the symbol of the body, because the person who was holding a workshop on light language, it was not only the sound, but would be, as she spoke, she would be acting, she would be speaking with her body And the symbols were very much a reflection of, or were very much in the mold of, the figures of humans in hieroglyphic scenes on ancient Egyptian art in pharaonic times. I mean, I'm not an expert on that area, so I can't say of which dynasty, but has anybody seen that before, or have you ever been moved to integrate body movements with as an expression such that it would be a symbol? Like it was very, you know, that typical symbol that you would see. I know that we don't have much of a screen, but where your arms would be up here and the other arm like that. So it would be very much like that. And so as I was watching it, I got the line from the Egyptian to whichever extraterrestrial civilization they were connecting with, and that the body was connected to the light language, that it wasn't only sound. And part of my history is I used to be a dancer with various companies. So I can see how that would work also, because it's coming down through your body and the DNA is very much connected with your body, and it's very mobile. I mean, it's moving. Anyway, I'm just kind of tossing out concepts here.
Well, I want to just chime in there too, because that's very true. And I actually do that. So I do know that, and I know a lot of other people that speak light language also do that. Also, I did not do it here because I actually have a microphone right here, and a lot of times I end up hitting it. So there's certain times where I won't. But I typically, when I'm doing languages, I will draw symbols in the air. There are specific symbols that I draw and then push them out, and especially doing that in session work for people. And energetically, it's hard not to speak the language and want to move your arms or your hands. I'm not a dancer whatsoever. So, but I still get this energy that runs through me that wants to create these symbols. And I started to do this a long time ago, drawing these symbols. It's more drawing it in the air and then moving my hands around and in certain ways that energizes the energy to activate it even more. And it's something that happens, I think, quite naturally for people. I mean, I talk with my hands a lot anyway, so I think that's why it comes forth. But the energy, not like I put my hand or my body in a certain position, but that I will speak a language and start getting a certain symbol that shows, for me, it comes in like my mind's eye, but I end up drawing it and then moving it around as if it's actually sacred geometry that I'm creating right here and right now. You know, if we could see the geometry being created with our third eyes, just maybe we can't see the geometry being created with the naked eye, but we can certainly see it from our perspective of that. So that's a great point, because I know I have a few friends that do light language that majorly use their arms. I mean, they're like all over their body, they get everything involved, you know, and it's natural. So I think that opens up, I think, more and more with people. I didn't start out doing it necessarily like that, but as I was starting to do it, my body was starting to relax more. I started drawing and symbols came forth. It's very fascinating.
Thank you. Go ahead, John.
You know, I have to agree with everything you just said. And I'm one of those guys that I want to know why, you know. I wanted to know all the details about it, which is why I need to really get with Philip. But as far as the movement and everything, my understanding of that is it compounds the intent. So as you're doing an activation for someone, not only are you creating through your voice, the vibration there, but the movement, and then through the movement, if you're familiar with what a harmonic is in music, it actually creates an energetic harmonic. So there's more than one component happening at one time. And there's your sacred geometry. So you are right on the mark with that.
Yeah, Phil might want to comment. I just want to make a comment about the symbols. If you're familiar with the Ariel School story, there's one of the girls there, Emily Trim, who's actually from Hamilton, Canada, has the being. There's her and this other girl running along the edge of the playground, and this being suddenly appears beside them. Then suddenly it's right in front of her, and she gets what I call rapid image cycling, where they're flashing these. She's seeing technological images flashing at this very rapid rate, 100 images a second in her frame of reference, and the other girl's getting environmental images. And then she had a second encounter. This would be about 5 years ago, where she has the encounter. First one was 94 in Rhodesia. Second one was about 5 years ago in Hamilton, and they appear in her kitchen. She's just traumatized by the whole thing. She starts to paint, which a lot of experiencers do, where they start to, they get paint and they start painting, and they've never painted before in their life. And all her paintings have symbols in them, every single one. And she talks about the symbols are the most important part of the whole thing. I think she's done over 100 paintings. They're in Montreal in storage there. They haven't gone public, but she'll be in this new Ariel School documentary. But you see this this very importance of the symbols. But I want to sort of throw it maybe to Phil for a second about the sacred geometry. I remember you talking to me about the different shapes presenting things. Can you get into sacred geometry and how it fits into light language? You have to unmute yourself.
Were you just referring to the ALMA drawings, ALMA? I would recommend everybody to do a search on ALMA, the ALMA drawings.
Yeah.
This was a woman who was very advanced in age. She had a vision of Jesus and a panther, I think when she was in her 70s, and her hand started moving and it never stopped until the day she died. Hundreds, thousands of amazing, and it was all automatic writing. She had no consciousness of what she was doing.
And she didn't even believe in what she was doing, because it was like Indian stuff. She was Christian. I remember she was, it's a different girl than I'm referring to, but I remember Alma she would smoke with one hand and her other hand would be drawing, and she'd be talking at the same time.
When she ran out of paper, she'd be painting the toilet, her bungalow. It's just incredible, the information that came through. I think there was a group of Tibetans that looked at her work, and there are Tibetan deities. There are what J.J. Hurtak in the Keys of Enoch calls the language of the eye, the Enav Ketayim. The Alma drawings are incredible. We were able to translate some of them because they are in universal light languages. Remember, you're going to start channeling the ones, as Lightstar said, your mother tongues that are closest to you in consciousness are angelic identities, Pleiadian, Syrian, Arcturian. But before I just talk about the geometry, you know, there's a group in North Carolina, they teach the ascension attitudes. I can't remember what they're called again, but did you ever hear the recording of the crickets? What they did was they took a recording of crickets, you know, crickets like out in the woods, and they slowed it down. And what it sounds like is angelic choirs. And when somebody mentioned the wind, the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the sound of wind rustling through the grass, this is all absolutely incredible. It actually sounded like phrases from Ave Maria. So you get the notion that the great composers, and not just composers, art, poetry, it's like I think John was saying in Lightstar and Linda and some others, whatever you're contracted to do it, whether you're meant to sing it, dance it, artwork, poetry, writing, or just being a presence healer. You see, talking about the geometry, remember the Emoto work, Mr. Emoto? The most beautiful of his crystals are the ones that are translations of forgiveness and gratitude. So just imagine if you become the actual living vibration of forgiveness, gratitude, compassion, mercy, all these expressions of love. Every crystal and micro crystal in your body will be able to hold and radiate that light. You will be, as Jesus talked about in the Pistis Sophia, a presence healer. You will have the full effulgence of light. You don't have to learn Reiki or electromagnetic healing. You will just heal by the light that you're able to radiate. Geometry is a wonderful, wonderful study. This is why the ancients would just meditate on a flower or a banana or a cucumber. All these things, all living things share these same geometric harmonies and ratios. When you think divine thoughts that are in divine harmonies and ratios and numbers, you can recreate in your mind these palaces, these temples of divine spiritual science. You don't necessarily have to go to the sites themselves. You can create these same frequency domains in your own consciousness. I think this group is absolutely incredible. I think we're all, remember, we were the first waves of indigos that came in. Now I think whoever was talking about, I think it was the woman who works with the children.
Mary.
Now the most highest coded indigos, they couldn't come in earlier because the planetary grids couldn't support their presence, which is why a lot of people wonder, why don't the advanced extra metaterrestrials come in? The planetary grids, until more of the planetary karma is healed, can't support their living presence when they come into our harmonic here. This is why we have to do our healing. When we birth into this world, we pass through a huge interdimensional stargate at the Earth's core, the sphere of Amenti, the halls of paradise, the gates of heaven, and we drop codes, we drop templates. Now enough of us have come in that I think every incarnating Earth human now comes in with the potential that up until maybe a few years ago, we all had, which is to activate the full DNA template, all quote unquote 12 strands. But I think when we study geometry, I think the greatest, or sacred geometry, the greatest gift of sacred geometry is that we see that so many things in this world, in reality, share the same geometries. We begin to feel interconnected with all things. It's like Grant, you were saying, I've seen the functional MRIs. When you shut off certain zones of the parietal lobe, we feel that sense of oneness in meditation. Some areas of the frontal brain, the prefrontal cortex, and especially the parietal lobes close down, and that's what separates right and left hemispheres. So we start to get this unified consciousness, and we can tap into that unified field of consciousness, the web of Indra, it was called in ancient times, where we begin to tap into higher and higher collective morphogenetic fields. That's why I think this group is so important, and I think the understanding of what light language is and how it links into sacred geometry. The greatest gift is that we all feel connected with the oneness. We know that we're not alone. We know that we share so much, that we always have had so much in common, that which we thought separated us we will realize in time that unites us, because we're all in this together, especially in these times of existential crisis, which maybe anticipated this movement we're in and maybe helped actually facilitate it. Who knows what our higher identities have in store for us until we begin to link with them more closely. Then we will know these children coming in now are almost fully realized souls. That's why they're light, that's why their memory is so clear. The look of frustration on their little faces is because they want to tell us everything, but they don't have the anatomy yet developed to be able to talk to us. And the same with light language. We don't have the actual anatomy to actually tone the higher light languages, but we will as our DNA activates, our anatomy, our physiologies will change concurrently. So I just want to thank you again, so much to share. It will be wonderful. In the webinar, you're all welcome to share also. I see that we all have such incredible gifts to share with each other, and we all do. We all do.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you, Philip.
Welcome. Yeah. The Alma drawings. Yeah.
I just want to say and ask others if when the 5-year-old spoke, when Mary played it, did they have a feeling of peace and connection as soon as she started speaking? There's something about the youth that has some special connection to, I think, everybody, and that was just a powerful moment. I mean, that's quite a beautiful thing. There she is calling me right now.
Hi, Grant. Can I share something?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Giorgio.
One of my contactee friends from Latin America, he was given a script which looks very similar to one of Nancy Dutertre's main scripts.
Wow.
It's made of basically lines and dots.
Okay.
And according to him, this allows him to connect his subconscious mind with the conscious mind of the ETs he's connecting with.
Okay.
And these ETs exist in a different time frequency. So through this symbology, he can connect with them. You can see lines and dots. I don't know if you can see right here. Lines and dots.
Yeah.
And when he uses this in order to call them, they come down physically and visible in our time frequency. This one is closer.
Okay.
Okay, these are Polaroid pictures.
Yeah.
And those are the scripts. That's the script. So each of these symbols corresponds to a letter in a language that we know. In this case, it's Spanish. But eventually, the contact was absolutely astounding.
Wow.
Witnessed by several people. I interviewed like 5 of them.
Wow.
There he is being taken up into the air physically into this, according to him, Orion spaceship.
Wow.
Through this system of communication, basically. And there he is being surrounded by an energy field. He's hunching down, he's bending down because of the altitude. He was feeling dizzy, but there he is being surrounded by the energy field, which is kind of yellowish. And all of this through this script.
Wow.
So he doesn't speak in languages, light languages or anything like this, but he can write in this script, and there's a direct link with these beings.
That fits in sort of with the Mission Rama people use automatic writing quite a bit in terms of communication, correct?
Yeah. He's not from Mission Rama. He's another contactee from Latin America.
Well, why are there so many contactees in Latin America in terms of, and what I noticed, I brought it up with Enrique and with Ricardo. I said, like, I mean, how many boys at 14 years old meditate? I would, that's what I found very strange with them, is like here, I mean, nobody meditates when they're 14 years old as a boy. And you see this different, almost like it's a different culture, a different way of looking at things, and that you have many more contactees than you have in sort of the population of America.
I think it's, I mean, I meditated when I was 14. I think it's a matter of being more bold and trying rather than questioning everything, if this is real, not real, intellectually and all that. You go ahead and try it. And just by trying it, things happen. Wow. It's a cultural difference.
Yeah.
I had a experience recently with Dakini script, if anybody knows who the Dakinis are. I'm a long-term Tibetan practitioner and Tibetan Buddhism. And I was in California for 2 weeks. His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche was over from India, the head of the lineage I practice in. And so we were traveling around getting teachings from His Holiness. And at one point we were in, we were in Arcadia, and we went, it was just before we got to Arcadia. But anyhow, we went to see the we had a break in the teachings, and some friends said, did I want to go and see, there were some Buddhist Sharia, which are Buddhist relics, at the Wei Temple. So I said, sure, let's go. And this wasn't a Tibetan temple, it was a Theravadan temple. And if anybody knows the differences in Tibetan Buddhism or different Buddhist schools. So anyhow, when I went, the women were showing us all these relics that had like grown like miraculously over time. There's pictures of them on my Facebook page. And then one of the women, Vietnamese women, spoke to me and she said, there's this script that's appearing around some of these relics. And it's not, it's not Vietnamese and it's not Chinese, because the nuns there were like Vietnamese and Chinese who were taking care of these relics. And she said, we think it's Tibetan, because I said I just come from these teachings with, high Tibetan lamas who were in town. And so I showed her, I had a bracelet, with Tibetan language on it, which I'd received from Bertoli, my teacher who lives in Chino Valley, Arizona. And she said, yes, that looks like the script. And I looked at the script, and there's something that they call Dakini language. The Dakini are the skygoers, right? And and this will just appear spontaneously. And what had appeared around these relics in the glass looked like a Dakini language, which is like an esoteric language that just miraculously appears in the Dakinis. You can see the photographs. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
We're coming up on the 2 hours. Has anybody got anything else they want to add, or is there a light language message that people have that they want to leave with people in terms of, because I that's what I noticed when I was watching the light language people, that they have certain, like a healing one and different sort of scripts almost.
Yeah, if we could go around the table with everybody taking turns,
Okay.
That'd be great, Grant.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, maybe you can start and then everybody can jump in, and then we'll shut it down, and we may have this again and see, because the more it's like, this always works the same way. Like I'm working on the orb thing where you put it out and then suddenly you get inundated with new people that want to add. So we may do this again down the road, but start and then let's go around the with all the people with goodbye messages or whatever you want to share with everybody else.
Did you want me to start?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Te toia ne me ete ke me kuka pua e tia. Je puchisini ne mini. Lorevo kuka poka tatanana. Shipua tia anana akepue. Lo toda bebe kia patotana makamo kwenkiam buia. Jora ala re bebe kiai. Samama ko ke momatan. He halo re to kia kabukepe. Just die. Dona me king. Praheto ko mama ko kia me e chi. Wasa pototoku. Kia hala wareti. Ma ache kape. Wasi roto bebe king kankan. Shuala areto tu. Pikia sepe pakantatontia. Mahai. Jupochi lehri. Makwae kingeme.
Thank you.
I'll go next. Ari azu azni azi ali ari shay azuni aziri azri anu azali azudi zini azuni azajidi azuna.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, well, that was beautiful, you guys. I'm feeling like I'm gonna do some just angelic tones that want to come through, just to kind of reverberate out there love for everybody. So just enjoy that. Yata ita sama, ita sahire.
Thank you. Linda, you got to take off your mic or put your mute off and if you want to speak.
Thank you. Astur asantoro shante ketaroake. Ini dikshishtu ko hore shini de ketaroake. Ini mikataro asantoro shukutur mokuturo katari ki sinte kotrova. Ini ketar shuntoro gete kataro ishantle ir umbur ilama kataro santle shita. Oro kiki mahalo hushtuni katar. Ilikawa leme arashtu ar inistun batay istin kuturo katama kataro shunt kopaka. لما هي رفسون تروكي على آنت أور إشترك تروكي تما كتروتي لمور أستان تروشير إيرا أولوي إير سنتي أو كموتي كتروشينتي على مو كترويكا أمو توسي أمو كتروكير أمو هاشتني لي على مو كتروكينا على أن إشتني إيكرا أو إلى على مو كتروشينتي مو كتروكي أو كمتركيكا أوشتني رستي أو كمتري.
I'll just use a light language that's familiar to all of us, English. English, the language of angels and angles. And I just want to say much love. Thank you. Be safe. And remember that we're feathers in each other's wings. Much love.
Thank you. Hildegard?
Ishaki. Osanamatu, Kutana, Ikatu, Ilama, Shikatana Manasu, Kuna, Silabi, Ikwanatatu, Kushata, Shilama, Ika, Tanamanasu, Onsata, Ika, Tikanamanalatu, Shusati, Kimatu, Osa.
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Mark, you want to, did you get your money's worth? It was as good as a hockey game?
Better. I mean, if you weren't touched by what was going on here tonight, I mean, I don't know what could stimulate you in any other way. I mean, it's as we talked about, Grant, that we thought this would be a special night, and it certainly is. And I could see you doing more interviews with these type of people, just like you led through all the different genres that you've been touching on. This is such an important one, I know, as everyone has talked about. I want to before we sort of close this off, I want to say Marie-Anne Bryson has a new book. She's one of a Winnipeg group, and it launched yesterday. So it's called In Tune with Life, Love, and the Divine Matrix. So it's on, I think it's $1.40 on Amazon. So if you want to buy that, I congratulate her for finishing her book. And I know you prompted her to push to write the book, Grant. So congratulations to her, and thank you for you doing that.
Yeah, Desta did a lot.
And Desta too. Thank you. That's also one other thing I'd like to finish by. These type of events come on, and I think they mean so much to us. Philip, all your words are touching and caring. I know I felt just a wealth of warmthness amongst the entire group, and to feel the connection of all of us. And there's obviously a reason why we're here today to experience this. I would say that I thank all of you, but also the groups the people who are behind the scenes that do things for us to organize. And, Desta, Sinead, Brad, Betty, who had an operation on Monday and is not with us today, but she's recovering. We all wish her well. And I'd like to thank all of you, everyone, all the people who joined in tonight. I noticed there were 4 pages of people with 100 people on this thing. And I'm not sure if that was the maximum that we could hold. I see people that were trying to get in that could not get in because of how we were full. So anyways, I have to say and end by saying thank you to all of you for your efforts, for your sharing, and for your love that actually allowed us all to connect tonight. Thank you all.
Beautiful, and thank you, Mark. We had people from Singapore, Australia, England, the United States, Canada. It's shows us almost like the virus that we are all sort of one. We are all connected, and we are here for a reason. So thank you for everybody contributing. Tomorrow night is the meeting with Toronto, a Toronto Experiencers group. I would recommend people go. That's a very important interview. That guy, it's not going to be on the record, but you'll be able to hear him tell this magnificent story. And Phil, hopefully you put your link in there for the for your webinar. We're going to do an interview with Phil. Lightstar, there is actually on my YouTube channel, there is an interview with Lightstar on there, and a number of you're going to see a number of light speaker interviews that we're doing. We've got a couple that weren't able to be here tonight, but we've done these, and so thanks for your contributions. And I don't know what you got planned for next month, Mark, but we'll do it again. We'll find something else to talk about, and thank you.
We'll all look forward to it. There's always a special connection amongst all of us, and sharing this once a month gives us all something to look forward to.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey,
Nice
Mark.
to see everyone.
Yeah, nice to see you. Nice to see you, Mary, as well.
Nice to see you, Hildegard.
Bye, Linda.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's
Thanks,
talk.
Linda.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, all speakers. They're fantastic. Very exciting.
Hi, you guys. Thank you all for everything. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Koi chiama da toi.
Last minute light language in there.